Ms. Watkins, Shell's 2020 annual report called for between $19 and $22 billion in near-term spending. I'm representing that with this container of M&Ms. Each M&M represents about $50 million in spending. Ms. Watkins, how much has Shell said it will spend in the near term on oil, gas, and chemical operations?
I think you just said we're going to be spending between $18 and $20 billion this year.
That's near term. On total spending, how much on oil, gas, and chemical operations?
We're going to be spending.
Well, according to your annual report, you said you're going to spend 16 to 17 billion for oil, gas, and chemical, with another $3 billion for marketing. How much is Shell spending to spend on renewable energy?
This year, we'll be spending between $2 and $3 billion.
2 and 3 billion on renewables and energy solutions. In your testimony, you said, quote, meeting the demand for reliable energy while simultaneously addressing climate change is a huge undertaking and one of the defining challenges of our time. Shell has made these promises before. Shell pledged to spend $6 billion between 2017 and 2020 on renewable energy. How much of that did Shell actually spend? The answer is about half. Ms. Watkins, does this look like a huge undertaking to you?
Congresswoman, what I can tell you is that there needs to be both a demand and a supply of clean energy, which is why we're working very closely with our customers so that that demand increases over time and we are
Ms.
ready
Watkins,
to supply.
To me, this does not look like an adequate response to one of the defining challenges of our time. This is greenwashing. Shell is trying to fool people into thinking that it's addressing the climate crisis, when what it's actually doing is to continue to put money into fossil fuels.
I want to hear today about innovation. As you know, this is our second day of hearings with the CEOs of big pharma companies, and we've heard so much important information about the very real costs of research and development, R&D. Mr. Bradway, what was Amgen's total revenue in 2017?
Oh, gosh, approximately $22 billion.
Okay, so it was $23.7 billion. How about 2018?
I don't have that to hand, but again, it would be 24.
That's okay, I have it handy. 22.8 billion, 2019, 23.4 billion. This totals up, because I know it's hard to do math on the fly, to $69.9 billion.
Thank you.
Mr. Bradway, over those 3 years that we're talking about, 2017 to 2018, how much of its own revenue did Amgen invest in that really important research and development work?
Approximately $10 billion.
Okay, so R&D, taking you at your word here, was about 10 billion. Great, that's a big number. Investing in R&D dwarfs some of your other expenses, is that right? It's one of your largest expenses.
That's correct.
How much did Amgen spend on lobbying over that same 3-year period?
I don't have the exact number, but it's approximately $10 million a year.
That's correct, $32.52 million on lobbying. How much did Amgen pay for the salaries of the top five executives over this 2-year period?
Oh, goodness, it's about, I would guess, $6.5 million per year, so $13 million would be my guess.
13 million, would you like to revise? Take a look right here, sir.
Sorry, you asked salary. I gave you an answer to the question about salary.
I'm sorry. Let me rephrase. How much did Amgen spend on compensation for the top 5 executives?
Thank you. That's the number you've written on the board. Thank you.
Could you say that number, please, for the committee?
Yes, I'll assume that your number is correct. It's $124 million.
Okay, wonderful. And then my final question is, how much did Amgen spend on stock buybacks in that same 2-year period?
Sorry, 2-year or 3-year period?
Right here, 3-year period, sorry.
3-year period. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but that includes the period where tax reform was implemented. So I would guess it's on the order of $30 billion. Yeah,
Right
so
around this number. Can you say it for the committee? I'm not a witness, sir, so I can't testify as to your profits. I need you to state the number.
The number that you have written is $28.6 billion.
Thank you. Amgen, so this, you spent double, more than double, almost triple on stock buybacks over the 3 years as you did on R&D. Is my math correct? 10 billion is roughly 1/3 of 28.6 billion.
Yes, but what you haven't included there is the capital that we allocated to acquire research and development externally, which
Okay.
would be about $19 in that period.
Okay. You make an anti-inflammatory drug called Enbrel, which is used to treat conditions like arthritis. Mr. Bradway, did Amgen do the research that led to the creation of Enbrel?
No, not the original discovery. First, we've done billions of dollars of work on
It's
Enbrel
just a
since
yes or
the
no. Did you do the research that led to the creation of Enbrel?
Congressman, I stand by my answer. The Enbrel that you use, the patients use today, did we do the research and development work associated with it? Absolutely, quite a bit of it.
Did you yourself run or oversee the trials of the drug? Did any executive in Amgen help invent this breakthrough drug?
No, I did not. I was not involved in breakthrough development of the drug or the discovery of the drug.
In fact, Enbrel was invented at an academic medical center, and its discovery was funded largely by taxpayers. Amgen later acquired the biotech company who manufactured Enbrel. Amgen did not directly pay for the discovery of Enbrel, correct?
No, that's incorrect. Your statement is wrong. Enbrel was discovered by scientists at a biotechnology company called Genentech.
Okay. What I'd like to do now, Mr. Bradway, is I'd like for you to please explain to the American public why you and 4 other executives deserve to pay yourselves tens of millions of dollars each year. I've got an empty whiteboard ready to take down your justifications.
Right, I recognize that that's a considerable sum of money. I would, of course, point out that I don't have any direct input to my compensation. That's derived by the board, and it's forward to a vote of the shareholders who have overwhelmingly supported the compensation package for me and the other named executive officers.
Reclaiming my time, sir. Do you not know why you're getting hundreds of millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars a year? What is the justification? I'd like to show the American people.
Yeah, our compensation is consistent with competitive positions at other companies.
Mr. Bradway,
like
reclaiming
ours.
my time. The other guy gets paid too much too isn't a justification. I'd like to hear what you do to deserve $124 million in salary, you and your top 5 executives, over a 3-year period.
Well, more than 90%.
Gentleman's time has expired. The gentleman may respond to her question.
Okay. More than 90% of my compensation is based on performance measures that include how our shares perform relative to the market, and our compensation program is aligned with that of our owners, our share owners. And so a large part of my compensation reflects the fact that we've been creating value for our share owners by advancing innovative medicines like those that we have in the marketplace today.
I wish you would focus on creating value for sick patients, Mr. Bradway, not just your shareholders. I yield back. Mr. Zuckerberg, as you know, Facebook can be sometimes an unkind place, both toward my personal appearance and today apparently toward your haircut. But I just, as a mother of a teenage boy, I just want to say thanks for modeling the shortcut. You have said, quote, "We have a responsibility to protect our data, and if we can't, then we don't deserve to serve you," unquote. Do you remember making that statement?
Congresswoman, yes.
And Facebook's privacy principles say, 1, we give you control of your privacy, 2, you own and can delete your information, and 3, we are accountable. Today, can you affirm that Facebook cares about user privacy and still holds itself to the standards it articulates in its public policies?
Congresswoman, we certainly care about privacy. It's incredibly important to people.
Great.
And
Super. If that's true that you care about privacy and you're hewing to these principles, why are you arguing, Facebook, in federal court that consumers can't hold you liable for any of these promises because, quote, as plaintiffs admit, they and every Facebook user are bound by Facebook's terms of service, which release Facebook from liability for users' contract and common law claims.
Congresswoman, I'm not familiar with that specific legal argument.
Well, it's right there for you. You are arguing in federal court that in a consumer data privacy lawsuit, in which your own lawyers admit that users' information was stolen, that the plaintiffs fail to articulate any injury. In other words, no harm, no foul. Facebook messed up, but it doesn't matter. Is that your position?
Congresswoman, I'm not familiar with all the context here, so and I'm not a lawyer, so it's a little bit hard for me to weigh in on the specifics.
Mr. Zuckerberg, as CEO and the tremendously proportional shareholder of Facebook, you are responsible for the legal arguments that your company makes. You hire these lawyers. Will you commit to withdrawing this argument and this pleading and never again plead that there is no liability on Facebook when data breaches occur?
Congresswoman, you're certainly right that I'm CEO and I'm responsible for everything that happens in the company. All that I'm saying is that I imagine that there are more pages to this document, and
okay, I'm going to take that as a no for right now, but I would like you to consider it. I think your pleading is inconsistent with your privacy principles, and I think that American people are tired of this hypocrisy. I've been in Congress 10 months, and I have already lost count of how many people have sat in exactly that chair and said one thing to me and to this Congress and then done another thing in federal court. I want to turn to a different issue. Facebook's known as a great place to work, free food, ping pong tables, great employee benefits, but Facebook doesn't use its employees for the hardest jobs in the company. You've got about 15,000 contractors watching murders, stabbings, suicides, other gruesome, disgusting videos for content moderation, correct?
Congresswoman, yes, I believe that that's correct.
You pay many of those workers under $30,000 a year, and you've cut them off from mental health care when they leave the company, even if they have PTSD because of their work for your company. Is that correct?
Congresswoman, my understanding is we pay everyone, including the contractors associated with the company, at least a $15 minimum wage. And in markets and in cities where there's a high cost of living, that's a $20 minimum wage. We go out of our way to offer a lot of
Thank you. I take your word at the wage.
health.
Reclaiming my time. According to one report I have, and this is straight out of an episode of Black Mirror, these workers get nine minutes of supervised wellness time per day. That means 9 minutes to cry in the stairwell while somebody watches them. Would you be willing to commit to spending 1 hour a day for the next year watching these videos and acting as a content monitor and only accessing the same benefits available to your workers?
Congresswoman, we work hard to make sure that we give good benefits to all the folks who are doing this.
Mr. Zuckerberg, reclaiming my time, I would appreciate a yes or a no. Would you be willing to act as a content monitor to have that life experience?
I'm not sure that it would best serve our community for me to spend that much
reclaiming my time. Mr. Zuckerberg,
I spend a lot of time
reclaiming my
looking at this
time.
content.
Mr. Zuckerberg, are you saying you're not qualified to be a content monitor?
No, Congresswoman, that's not what I'm saying.
Okay, then you're saying you're not willing to do it. How many lobbyists are on your payroll?
Congresswoman, I don't know the answer to that.
60. So 6 lobbyists. And I wanted to ask about the timing of your announcement this week to invest $1 billion into housing charity on the day before your testimony before this committee. You may respond in writing. My time has expired. Well, thank you all for being here. I'd like to start with Mr. Begor. And my question for you is whether you would be willing to share today your Social Security, your birth date, and your address at this public hearing.
I would be a bit uncomfortable doing that, Congresswoman. If you'd so oblige me, I'd prefer not to.
Okay. Could I ask you why you're unwilling?
Well, that's sensitive information. I think it's sensitive information that I like to protect, and I think consumers should protect theirs.
If we gave that if that sensitive information were provided at this public hearing, what are you concerned about could happen?
I think, like every American Congresswoman, my apologies, Congresswoman, I'd be concerned about identity theft. I'm actually a victim of identity theft. It happened 3 times in the last 10 years to me, twice with my tax returns and once as a consumer of someone opening up fraudulent credit accounts in my name. Somehow they got my social security number, my date of birth, and my address, and then changed the address and opened up the account. So I think like all Americans, we're concerned about that.
Okay, so my question then is, if you agree that exposing this kind of information like that you have in your credit reports, creates harm, therefore you're unwilling to share it, why are your lawyers arguing in federal court that there was no injury and no harm created by your data breach?
Congresswoman, it's really hard for me to comment on what our lawyers
Sir,
are doing.
Respectfully, excuse me, but you do employ those lawyers, and they do operate at your direction. They're your counsel, and they are making these arguments in court, arguing on the record. I have the pleadings here from the court case. They are arguing on the record that that this case should be dismissed because there is no injury and no harm created by the disclosure of people's personal credit information. Yet I understand you, as I would, to believe that that the exposure of that information, I asked you if you would give it to the committee, and you understandably said no, would in fact create a harm. So I guess I would ask you to please look carefully at what your lawyers are doing and the arguments that they are making, because I feel they're inconsistent with some of the helpful testimony that you've provided today.
The gentlewoman from California, Ms. Porter, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Sheriff, have you seen Harold and Kumar go to White Castle?
Excuse me?
Have you seen the movie Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle?
No, I've not, Congresswoman.
So there's a famous scene in that movie where Neil Patrick Harris borrows the car and completely trashes it. And Wells Fargo lends money to consumers to buy cars, and Wells Fargo wants the consumers to take good care of the car. That's the collateral. Protect that value. But there's always this Neil Patrick Harris risk. Someone trashes the car, defaults on the loan, and the value's not enough, and there's a risk of a loss. To guard against that loss, Wells Fargo has consumers pay for GAP waivers. GAP stands for Guaranteed Auto Protection, and the GAP waiver cancels the remaining balance on the loan if the regular auto liability payout after the car is damaged is insufficient. But when someone pays off the loan, there is no need for that GAP waiver. There's no need for debt cancellation because the debt is paid off. But you, Wells Fargo, keep charging for that GAP waiver. You didn't tell consumers after they paid off the loan early that you owed them money back, about $350 each. Effectively, the bank stole this money from 1.7 million consumers nationwide, leaving Wells Fargo sitting on over $600 million in ill-gotten gains. How much of that $600 million that Wells Fargo owes consumers in GAP overcharges has been returned?
Congresswoman, I don't know the exact number sitting here of what we've returned.
Okay, the chart on the side, this is how much you owe, $600 million. This is how much you've returned, 0. You told me in my office that Wells Fargo in the past has been penny wise but pound foolish, and I agreed, resisting doing what's right and paying consumers. And I really saw that when I was the monitor for the state of California during foreclosure crisis. So if you're here today to tell us that Wells Fargo has changed its ways, you should have no problem committing to giving these people their own money back in terms of GAP overcharges. Will you commit to give them their money back?
Congresswoman, there's no question if we have harmed customers, then we should in fact do that, and we'll go back and take a look at the specific example and understand why it hasn't been done and how we can move quickly to rectify it.
This is the pleading in that case that's pending, in which Wells Fargo is currently arguing that even though it charged people for many years of GAP insurance, and the consumer paid off the loan early, they have not in fact refunded that GAP insurance. And that $350 means a lot. It's 18 bags of groceries for families. So I would love for you to commit to doing that. I also wanted to ask you, have you heard of the song, Mamas Don't Let Your Babies Grow Up to Be Cowboys?
I don't believe I have.
It's written by an American hero, Willie Nelson. I have 3 kids, Mr. Scharf, and I'm thinking of writing a new song, Mama Don't Let Your Babies Grow Up to Be Bank Tellers. Mr. Scharf, how many of your tellers are currently receiving public assistance in this country?
I'm not aware, Congresswoman.
Right now, 1/3 of bank tellers in the United States receive public assistance. Madam Chair, I'd like permission to enter into the record the study from the University of California, Berkeley, that shows that the cost of public benefits to families of bank tellers is almost $900 million per year.
Without objection, such is the order.
So taxpayers are subsidizing Wells Fargo's wages to the tune of $900 million per year. I don't want my kids to grow up and be Wells Fargo tellers because statistically speaking, one of the three would end up needing public assistance. Is Wells Fargo profitable? Is Wells Fargo profitable?
I believe it is, yes, Congresswoman.
You believe? I mean, it's $19.5 billion last year, so we can round that up to $20 billion. That's profit. So the bank can afford to pay its tellers significantly more. Do you think the hardworking taxpayers of this country should be shoring up Wells Fargo's tellers' salaries when the bank has profits of $20 billion a year and paid out $30 billion in buybacks and dividends last year?
Congresswoman, I believe we should pay people fairly, and I believe the actions that we've taken, especially recently by raising the minimum wage, does in fact do that. We also, in addition to—
You raised the wage only in high-cost areas, however, not across the board. You raised the wage only in high-cost areas, not across the board.
We raised our wages in 4 different tiers.
With that, I yield back. Mr. Gonzalez, you're the CEO of Abbvie, which makes the cancer drug Imbruvica. Do you know what the annual price of Imbruvica was for a patient taking the standard 3 pills per day in 2013?
$130,000.
Okay, we had 99,766. What about today for those same 3 pills?
I think it's 169,000.
We have 181, but we can agree that there was a significant increase. Roughly, in a matter of 8 years, Abbvie more than doubled the price. Now, Mr. Gonzalez, how much money did Abbvie put directly into the research and development costs of Imbruvica before it hit the market in 2013?
We acquired Imbruvica when it was launched, so it would have been the company that we acquired. Which
So
we acquired
Abbvie itself didn't spend any money to create Imbruvica. It was invented by a smaller company, Pharmacyclics, which you later acquired, correct?
We paid $21 billion for the company, correct?
It was expensive to acquire them. So you paid fair market value for Pharmacyclics, but Abbvie then doubled the price, presumably justified by its $2.45 billion investment in R&D. Are there fewer side effects for patients now than there were in 2013?
Well, we developed significant indications and expansions and other disease states.
Are there
for
fewer
Imbruvica.
side effects, sir?
No, it has the same side effect profile.
Okay. Mr. Gonzalez, do people need less of this medicine, Imbruvica, to treat lymphoma now?
No.
So Abbvie took zero risk to develop this drug. You bought it approved for the market, knowing it would be profitable. You hiked the price to pay for R&D, but you haven't made the drug any better, even as you doubled the cost. I wrote an entire report on what is essentially the Imbruvica story. Big Pharma gobbles up a small innovative company, does nothing to improve the drug, but jacks up the price. Now, you told us that you spent $2.54 billion for R&D for Imbruvica, even though the drug didn't get any better. Really, it was all for these innovations and indications, which are designed to keep competitors off the market and find new sales opportunities. So I want to look at what other money Abbvie spends doing its business. You filed 165 patents for Imbruvica. You filed patents for Humira, other drugs to keep competitors off the market. How much did you spend on litigation and settlements from 2013 to 2018?
Let me correct one thing that I think you just said. And it is not true that we didn't invest in additional indications and additional diseases. As an example, we received approval after the development work of graft versus host disease.
Reclaiming my time. Mr. Gonzalez, how much did Abbvie spend on litigation and settlements from 2013 to 2018?
I don't have that number offhand. We'll be happy to give it to you.
Okay, $1.6 billion, $2.45 billion on R&D, $1.6 billion in litigation and settlements. What about marketing and advertising? How much does Abbvie spend on that?
Well, marketing and advertising, we spend about $4 billion a year.
Yep, 4.71 billion. How about executive compensation, 2013 to 2018?
2013 to 2018, it's probably on average about $60 million a year.
Try 334 on for size. Now, how much did Abbvie spend on stock buybacks and stock buybacks and dividends to enrich your shareholders from 2013 to 2018?
Well, stock buybacks, if you actually look at just pure stock buybacks, it would be about $13 billion.
Stock buybacks and dividends is the question, sir.
Dividends, and have to come back with a number for that over that period of time.
$50 billion. So, Mr. Gonzalez, you're spending all this money to make sure you make money rather than spending money to invest in, develop drugs, and help patients with affordable life-saving drugs. You lie to patients when you charge them twice as much for an unimproved drug, and then you lie to policymakers when you tell us that R&D justifies those price increases. The big pharma fairy tale is one of groundbreaking R&D that justifies astronomical prices. But the pharma reality is that you spend most of your company's money making money for yourself and your shareholders. And the fact that you're not honest about this with patients and with policymakers, that you're feeding us lies, that we must pay astronomical prices to get innovative treatments is false. The American people, the patients, deserve so much better. I yield back.
Mr. Summers, do you recognize the following statement? Banning federal leasing and development on federal lands and waters would derail decades of U.S. energy progress.
I do, Congresswoman.
That's your statement. How many of the Department of Interior's approved and ready to drill permits are currently unused?
Congresswoman, it takes a long time to develop these leases that
I appreciate that, Mr. Summers. I'm just asking how many permits are unused?
Congresswoman, I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding as to how these
Reclaiming my time, Mr. Summers, there are 7,700 permits unused. How many acres of public land are already leased by fossil fuel companies and not even used yet, just available or drilling whenever you decide?
Congresswoman, again, I think you have a fundamental misunderstanding as to how this process works and the time and resources.
Reclaiming my time. The answer is 13.9 million acres. To visualize how much land that is, if each grain of rice were 1 acre, that would be 479 pounds of rice. The American Petroleum Institute even opposed pausing more leasing on our lands. They even sued to stop it because apparently this acreage wasn't enough. Mr. Wirth, you serve on the American Petroleum Institute's executive committee. Do you support a pause on new oil and gas leases on federal land?
Congresswoman, access to resource in this country is essential to ensure the energy security of our country and
reclaiming my time. Mr. Lawler, do you support a pause?
The administration, and it's our hope that the pause ends soon. We think it's important to go forward.
Reclaiming my time. Thank you for your answer. The answer there is no. Mr. Woods, do you support a pause on new federal and gas leases?
No.
Ms. Watkins, do you support a pause on new federal and gas leases?
No, I do not, because I think it's important.
You already have 13.9 million acres. This is equivalent to Maryland and New Jersey combined. How much more do you need? How much more acreage? You have 2 of our 50 states at a price that makes the Louisiana Purchase look like a ripoff, and you're not even using it. What more do you need? Iowa, Colorado, Virginia? Our public land belongs to the American people, not to big oil. When you lobby and you sue so that you could take more of our public land, you're saying too much is never enough. The American people are tired of this charade.